Hi, everyone. I'm Lloyd Gom. I'm the Global Director of Marketing with the Zappi Group of Companies. This is our fourth annual Future of Electrification virtual conference. And on behalf of Zappi, our customers and partners, I welcome you to the opening and keynote presentation for this year's event. A couple of notes, this session is being recorded and will be available to watch on demand following the live presentation. If you have any questions during this session, please add them to the Q&A. You'll find that on the tab to the right of your screen. These are submitted privately and won't be visible to the audience. With that, I'm excited to introduce our speaker. Paulina Modlitba is one of Sweden's leading thought leaders in technology and innovation. She's an angel investor in tech companies, a board professional, lecturer, and consultant, and today we'll be speaking about a topic that's often portrayed as either a big threat or a huge opportunity: artificial intelligence. Very top of mind. Thanks for being here today, Paulina. I welcome you to the conference. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you for that amazing introduction. So I will start out with sharing my slides. All right. So this will be a story about AI. So when it comes to AI, there are, of course, several layers of the technology that we need to talk about. It's not only the technology, but it's also the societal aspects of it. And of course, the stories that we tell about AI. And from my perspective, what I see is that we tend to, in media, on LinkedIn and other social media, we tend to see this polarized environment for AI discussions. It's either this very sort of dystopic type of really dark stories about what AI can do if we don't control it, or really optimistic utopian stories about AI. And my belief in what I do and dedicate my time to on is everything that's going on in between these two polarized ends of the spectrum. And today I will share some of the things that I find there, practical sort of use cases and processes for actually how to start working with AI to create value for real. So that's the scope of this presentation. And you already know that I'm called Paulina Modlitba. I'm a civil engineer. I'm an investor, keynote speaker. So I'll jump right into just giving you sort of my personal take on AI and why I love this field so much. I grew up, you can see a small photo of me when I was approximately 9 years old. I was a very curious child. When I was not in school, I had my own school at home to learn more. And my biggest role model was MacGyver. I guess most of you are old enough to remember MacGyver from the 80s and 90s. This sort of TV series with MacGyver who could solve almost any problem with the help of technology and smart, quick solutions. Another role model of mine was Inspector Gadget, another one of those like inventor characters. And I didn't really know what being an inventor meant in real life. Like, is that a real job? But I knew somehow I wanted to use technology to make society and the lives of people better. And of course, AI is an important part of that. This is an actual picture of what I did at home when other kids were playing soccer or with dolls. I sat at home and I wrote these really nonsensical instructions. And I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. So this is 30 something years ago. And I think even though this text doesn't really make sense, I think based on the pictures and drawings that I was trying to solve the electricity and energy crisis some 20, 30 years too early. I was very fascinated when it came to electronics, electricity, space, and a combination of the three. Fast forward to today, electricity and AI. Looking at the space, it's very clear that we're in the midst of at least two different revolutions, probably even more. This image is from a report, the McKinsey Technology Trend Outlook from 2024, actually July 2024. And as you can see here, the two most sort of, or three most obvious trends and the most sort of promising fields within this is applied AI, the future of mobility, and electrification, all three being sort of important parts, of course, of what the SAPI group does, but also the context of this conference, of course. So we, and those of you who are listening to this keynote are probably somewhere in this triangle of these different revolutions that are going on at the same time and are changing not only the transportation sector, but society as a whole, of course. Looking at other numbers in the same report from McKinsey, it's pretty obvious that due to the inflation and due to geopolitical tension, um, the sort of what McKinsey did here is analyze 4.3 million job postings and sort of map the trends within these fields and how many jobs people are actually looking for, how many people are looking for to hire within different sectors. And even though we're going through some really hard times, it's pretty obvious that if you look at the cumulative change over time between 2021 and 2023, we see a positive change within these fields as well. So in addition to sort of just in general being in a revolution within these fields, we also see a positive trend when it comes to competence and hirings, which is important as well to understand when we talk about these things. There are different ways of actually mapping how mature different technologies are. McKinsey uses this scale from number one, frontier innovation. That's when a technology has just been sort of introduced, early days, to experimenting, to piloting, to scaling, and then finally fully scaled. And as you see, applied AI, generative AI is up there, number four, electrification, renewables, sort of further down, but still working its way up to scaling and fully scaled, number three. So we're definitely looking at technologies that are getting fully mature and ready to be fully scaled in society. And that's another really important factor to take into account. The electrification of vehicles, machinery paves the way for a sustainable future, and that should be said as well. So another aspect in this sort of story that I want to tell is that it actually contributes to a better society and a more sustainable future. I can't stress that enough, of course, looking at the state of the planet. And together they unlock solutions to energy and mobility challenges, but also challenges at a whole. And I will pinpoint some of those challenges and solutions eventually in this presentation. Yes, looking at AI more specifically, which is sort of my field of interest, it's a really complex space to navigate, as you probably noticed. The stories that we see in media goes along the lines of this. This is, of course, the godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton. He won the Nobel Prize in Physics 2024, and he is definitely one of the godfathers of AI, or sort of profiles within the AI space, that is warning us about the looming dangers of AI. And I think this is important, but it's not the only story. I should stress that there are an equal amount of AI experts and AI researchers that don't share this sort of dystopian image of AI. We don't know today, according to the research and what we know about AI today, there's no actual proof that we can develop super intelligence and that AI could actually mathematically become more intelligent than humans. Having said that, it's of course, a risk, a possibility that we have to take into account. But I don't think it doesn't motivate the sort of huge number of doom stories that we hear about AI. I just want to stress that as well. One reason for why it's super hard to navigate AI and talk about it and grasp it and understand it is, of course, that it changes so fast, and that we as humans, we tend to look at tomorrow's technologies and the consequences of those technologies with our, lenses of today or our glasses of today. So we try to squeeze in the future technologies into this box that we have here and now, which rarely works. Usually, future technologies have consequences and secondary consequences, and trigger changes that it's hard for us to understand. And again, um, they come and go, and we tend to sort of the development of new technologies tend to follow these hype cycle curves. Um, that it starts with an innovation trigger that triggers this inflated expectation. That's exactly what we've seen the last couple of years with generative AI. Everyone is talking about it. Everyone wants to do it. Eventually, we hit walls. We realize, like, oh, this was not as easy or cheap or as simple as we hoped it would be. We thought it would be more promising. We don't see the effects yet, and then we hit that sort of um, through of disillusionment or valley of disillusionment. And eventually, after that, we find more long-term sustainable approaches to these technologies through the slope of enlightenment to a plateau of productivity where we find this more sustainable and long-term productivity sort of approach to the technologies. And when it comes to AI, we've seen this happen many, many times. So if you know the history of AI from sort of the Second World War and moving forward, we have passed many different sort of phases of both sort of high expectations and then AI winters, as you can see here in my image. The first AI winter happening in the 70s. There are always these sort of breakthroughs in technology that sparks hope, that sparks the hype, and then eventually disillusionment, winter. Investments are lower, the engagement is lower, media is writing less about the technology, and then suddenly something new happens, computers in the 80s, and then another AI winter, and eventually we got to see the AI development that we're now sort of exploring, the deep learning revolution that happened in the 2010s. And that paved the way for generative AI that we're all using today, and the breakthrough of possibly a more sort of general intelligence, AGI, that you probably maybe have heard of. There might be more winters. We don't know. There is a lack of data today, which is causing a conversation around sort of the value of the AI stocks out there, the NVIDIA stock, et cetera. We don't have enough data to actually push the current form of AI forward. So AI researchers and the big tech companies are looking into new technologies of solving this problem without excessive data. It's always great to have sort of the historic perspective on technologies to demystify it a little bit. This is not the first time that we're talking about sort of going through an AI hype. So, what is this AI revolution about? When I talk about an AI revolution and the fact that we're in the midst of one, what do I mean? There are different voices describing this. One of my favorite futurists, Amy Webb, she has this fantastic data-driven futurist sort of research institute called Future Today Institute that I highly recommend. They do extensive work when it comes to trends and publish a free trend report every year. She says that we're actually facing the end of the internet as we know it. That's sort of the big revolution, and we're entering a world where everything is valuable and readable information. Suddenly we're using these AI systems that are multimodal. They can handle text, music, video, images, all of the above. And of course that means, data is the new oil. You've heard that, but all data is the new oil. That's the new thing here. And that's the type of data that the big tech companies, of course, is desperately looking for, because that's where the value is when it comes to AI systems. And when it comes to sort of, well, the transportation sector, but also society as a whole, one really obvious trend that we're seeing beyond the AI systems and the actual software and sort of the zeros and ones behind the scenes is that we're seeing the development of embodied AI in different ways. And that is not, it's not only robots, industry robots, it's self-driving cars, robot cars, of course, and any AI system that actually has something, actually a physical part to it. So any type of intelligent systems that uses senses or sensors to gather information and collect multimodal information about its environment. And of course, robots is a really important part of this. And that's what we're seeing. For example, China making embodied intelligent systems, making humanoid robots an important part of the development of electric vehicles and that whole industry in different ways. And China, of course, is sort of, they definitely know that this is sort of part of also that data is at the center of this development, but they're also making sure to combine it with the development of sustainable and green energy sources. So clean energy combined with humanoid robots and physical intelligence in the whole supply chain, of course. Um, what do we see here in the West world? So we talked about China, we had to mention that, but what is happening here? Unfortunately, we're not seeing the same progress. About 30%, and this is according to the 2025 automotive industry forecast by Thomas and NASDAQ. About 30% of automotive suppliers plan to adopt AI to enhance product development and supply chain efficiencies. And industry leaders are also invested in advanced manufacturing techniques such as 3D printer robotics. 30% is okay, but it's not great considering how big of a revolution and change it actually is. I would like to see a higher number, and that's sort of what I'm dedicating my time to making it actually happen. So what's holding companies back when it comes to this? Well, many companies actually have a hard time leveraging AI as a whole. So they have yet to jump, sort of get on that train. And some of the barriers that I see when I interview clients or I talk to clients is lack of expertise, lack of knowledge. Organizational silos is probably the most common one. And why is that important? We've talked about organizational silos for a long time and sort of breaking the barriers and collaborating in sort of the holistic approach to driving innovation. When it comes to AI, of course, we really have to collaborate when it comes to data. So if you haven't if you haven't overbridged organizational silos, you're much less likely to overbridge the data silos that you probably also have in your company. So that sort of is a really bad start to your AI journey. Also, there's this tendency to understand to lack the knowledge of how you actually scale from a pilot project to a full sort of running, a fully implemented project, and full deployment within your organization or your business. So in Sweden, for example, we see this a lot. People love to experiment and build pilot projects, but they stop there for one reason or another. Usually one of the problems is that they don't start the pilot project with a plan to actually extend it and fully deploy it. And if you don't have that plan and that goal to start with, it's hard to suddenly sort of start that journey and take a pilot project to a fully working AI system. So that's something you have to prepare for in advance. But also, I want to stress, I can't stress this enough, that an AI journey and anything related to AI is a highly human and cultural and sort of organizational journey as well. So it's usually there are usually several human factors tied into this leadership, but also resistance to change, lack of AI literacy among the teams, or unclear leadership vision, which is something that we see in Sweden specifically. Which is sad because AI can really, it's this superpower. If you actually leverage it fully, it can support and create opportunities within all parts of the organization and your business and all divisions and processes if you use it right. So in production, in marketing and sales, with content, for example, marketing automation, with distribution, supply chain analysis, and also service. And I'm going to sort of give some more concrete examples of that later on. One of my favorite AI thinkers and researchers is Andrew Ng, who has been tied to Google for a long time and is now running several businesses in addition to being an investor. He runs Coursera, which is a learning platform with lots of great AI courses. I can highly recommend it. He has this really simple model. If you're in the sort of process of identifying where should we start our AI journey and sort of what type of projects are valuable to us and our business, it's as simple as this, basically. If you actually manage to combine I love Venn diagrams, by the way. So if you look at the intersection of what AI can do and what's valuable for your business, in the intersection of those two sort of bubbles, you'll find your most valuable AI projects. And to be able to do this, you need interdisciplinary teams to collaborate. So again, those silos have to be torn down. You need to combine people who have AI knowledge and know what AI can do and especially can't do. So the technical diligence, and have those people work together closely together with people who have the domain knowledge, whether it's sort of finance or marketing or sort of distribution and supply chain or what it could be. So that's a business diligence, and so you have to have those two sides or parts work together in the organization to identify your future projects. And again, McKinsey looking at sort of what do AI high performers, so companies who have started this journey already, what are they doing that other sort of companies that are lagging behind are not doing? And they identified two factors, and one being that they have that the AI high performers actually have understood how AI combined with their data can create new revenue streams and improve products, and not just sort of cut costs and be used for making processes more efficient and for streamlining. Also, they're usually more keen on educating and upskilling their employees and their staff. I think 30% is probably, 30% is a 2023 number. It's probably much higher today. And actually, I will come back to this. In EU, you actually have to make sure, according to the new AI Act, you have to make sure that your employees have a certain level of AI literacy. So it's actually regulated these days because it's crucial. Andrew Ng, he has another model that I use with my clients a lot, and he calls it the virtual cycle of AI. And this is really a model to explain the benefits of using AI, not only for efficiency and cutting costs, but like how it actually makes it possible for you to scale your whole business. Yeah. For those of you who work closely to data and sort of business analysis, this is probably not new. Using data and adding AI to get help sort of with the analysis makes it easier for you to actually build better products. And as you enhance, as you see there in sector A, when you improve your products, you will attract, of course, more users. And when you get more users, you collect more data and insights. And if you use AI to find the gold in that data and in those insights, you get even better products and insights to improve your products, which attracts more users, which collects more data. And if you get this right, you get this like really positive power circle, the virtual cycle of AI, where AI actually helps you boost and scale business. So this is really sort of the way to think about it. And as I said, data at the core of everything. And one interesting aspect of this is, of course, when companies become eventually just as good as at using the same type of AI platforms, we tend to use the same AI platforms more or less. The sort of differentiation part of this and competitive aspects of your business will not lie in the usage of AI tools and which tools you're actually using, but rather in the data. Do you have unique data? How well structured is it? How do you actually use AI and data in combination to find insights that make your business and your whole organization even better? So it's your competitive advantage lies in the data and the way you use data rather than the specific tools and generative AI tools that you use. And I just want to give you a concrete example of this and what I mean. If you structure your data right and you make sure that you have everything gathered in a data lake, so the data is sort of collected in one space, no silos, etc. You can build interfaces like this. You make insights and data available to just anyone. Viable is a platform, an AI platform that combines AI with insights from consumer interactions, so consumer feedback and customer feedback. Uh, it uses natural language processing to find important insights and data and what people are saying about your product or your service. And so in this case, you can actually just use natural language to ask to communicate with the data and find insights. So in this case, what are the most common injuries while using our products and how can we prevent them? And you get the answers. So nowadays, with the help of generative AI and generative AI's understanding of language and context, anyone, you don't have to be a data scientist to find the insights. You can just talk, have conversations with the data, which I find really powerful. So to conclude this part of my talk, just some really sort of hands-on recommendations for steps in how to start implementing AI. You have to identify high impact use cases, again, sort of in the intersection of what AI can do and what's valuable for your business. Build cross-functional teams. Forget the silos. You have to have engineers, data scientists, business experts, etc., work together. Ensure data readiness. So you have to start by investing in data collection and make sure that it has high quality and is structured. Start small, but scale fast. So test AI in pilots, but you have to start get going. I'm going to come back to the actual leadership aspects of it, but you have to work with leadership and culture. It's a human journey as well. And collaborate with others. It could be industry partners, startups, people who already know these things. So, what type of leadership does the new AI era require then, looking at the human aspects of this? I love this series, this sort of story of the future of AI, where somebody uses AI to create this really impressive report, but the receiver, the person at the receiving end, doesn't have the time or energy to read that whole report and uses generative AI to make a bullet point that summarizes the most important aspects of the report. And the question here is, and this is what I mean with AI being a human matter. Why do we do this? Like what of everything that we do, the meetings that we have, the reports that we write, what actually adds value to our business and sort of pushes our business forward. There will be, my guess is that AI will push us to or force us to ask these questions about our organizations and the way we work and the things that we do as part of our job, our work roles. Again, Amy Webb, her picture of the future and the future that I see as well, looking couple of years ahead, is that we're now entering the era of assisted work. And who's assisting us? AI, of course. And the consequences of this, the positive consequences of this, is that I see us entering an era of generalists, creative generalists. So we're all, regardless of what type of core competences or work roles we have, if we actually, as individuals, use the right AI tools in the right ways, we suddenly get this extended toolbox of nearby or close competences without even upskilling or going back to school. So, what we as leaders have to do is sort of take this into account and understand that sort of the competences and the way we view competence and work roles and titles will change completely, and that we have to prepare for structuring and organize our teams and sort of the whole workforce in new ways and more agile and fast moving or organic ways, I guess. And we're moving from a world where we're mostly using generative AI to process language, generate reports, summarize text, to large action models that are more like personal assistants. And we're seeing this happen right now. So these action models are actually able to combine different AI models to help us with a little bit of everything. So not just process text or images, but actually support us in everything that we do. And I find this insight from Boston Consulting Group really interesting, and I've seen similar sort of insights in other reports and other research as well. Uh, what BCG did in an extensive study was compare the results of generative AI versus human output, and saw a really small semantic overlap in sort of the texts that humans versus generative AI generated, which means that we are sort of made for, we complement each other. Our output is very different, and therefore it's very clear that if we want diversity and if we want to extend our knowledge base, we should collaborate. Human and robot should work side by side, and we have very clear, distinct contributions and roles, which I find really sort of an important part of this story as well. And I think it makes it less threatening if you actually realize this. We're good at different things. Another really interesting study when it comes to leadership is the Great Place to Work. They have this European workforce study that they publish every year. And this year, this is only a couple weeks old, there were some really interesting insights regarding AI and leadership. So in general, they concluded that effective leadership is built on trust, proximity skills, and psychological safety. Especially psychological safety is important. But when it comes to AI, uh, the main insight here is that in AI business ready organization, management is twice as likely to involve people in decisions affecting their work. So companies and organizations that are built on and used to involving people broadly in innovation, in making decisions and make people feel included are much more likely to succeed in their AI journey as well. And going back to this slide, if you have a look at the charts to the right, comparing the not AI ready companies with AI ready companies, there are three factors where AI ready companies are performing much better. And the three are: people who try new ways of doing things are celebrated, whatever the outcome. So again, it's okay to fail, and people know that and feel that, which makes it they're much more prone to elaborate and sort of test new solutions and technologies. Number two is employees have training and development opportunities. And management involves people in decision affecting their work. So as you can tell, 75% versus 40, 73 versus 41, and 65 versus 32. The gap is pretty big. And I think this is sort of at the core. Those of you who are actually leaders and leading others and trying to encourage others to innovate, this is sort of my core message to what you should focus on as leaders. And the last slide from this report is that there is a very clear link between psychological safety and innovation. So Nordic countries, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, as you can tell, along with the Netherlands, are top when it comes to building organizations with a high level of psychological safety, and they also have a high level of innovation. So again, building trust and psychological safety boosts innovation as well in the organization. Another part of this, another report from Microsoft and LinkedIn, which has more to do with sort of upskilling and education. I found these numbers really interesting because there's a gap here too. This is another extensive study, thousands of respondents. And what I found interesting is that 66% of the respondents who are leaders, wouldn't hire somebody without AI skills. So they want people to have AI skills and expect them to. But at the same time, only 39% of the users who responded have received any type of AI training from the companies. And 25% of the companies who responded are expecting to offer AI training this year. So the gap here is that leaders expect AI skills and literacy, but they're not, seemingly not, sort of eager to provide that upskilling and education, which is a problem, of course, especially since I already mentioned this, according to the AI Act of EU, since February 2nd, it's actually required, a certain level of AI literacy is required. It's not that the EU will control that you actually have AI courses, but if something happens, if there's an incident, and the analysis of that incident and why it could happen is that people lack AI literacy, and if they would have been upskilled, this incident wouldn't happen. Then that will become a problem. So that it's more on that level. And my last part of this presentation is more hands-on, concrete examples. In what ways can AI support the industry, transportation, electronics, anything, but also society at large? Of course, you probably already seen examples of this. AI can be used for AI-driven product design, 3D printing, etc. We can also, of course, use it for battery technology, energy system optimization. And this is, of course, tightly tied to more sustainable solutions. Analyzing in the optimization of this part is sort of actually making it more sustainable and using these systems, developing batteries and battery systems, and the whole sort of analyzing the whole ecosystem to make it more sustainable. AI powered quality inspections in our production lines, another way of using it. But what I find most interesting is material discovery, because there's really clear benefits within this, and use cases that are really exciting. And I will give you some examples. I mentioned the Nobel Prize. The Nobel Prize in chemistry also went to AI this year. Of course, Google DeepMind, and their AlphaFold 3 that used AI to solve this, I think, 50-year-old mystery of how proteins actually fold. And it's definitely within this space that we see the most promise when it comes to AI. And what does that mean for you? Most of us don't work with proteins, but the reason why I want to show this use case is that it's that whole sort of using AI and generative AI to identify patterns that are too complex and big for humans to identify, that is super promising. And that can be applied to just about any sort of big data sets or any mystery that we're trying to solve. And what's beautiful about AI, sort of Google DeepMind and AlphaFold, is of course that they've made their findings and their technology available in an open database that can be used by anyone. And there are numbers already, like huge number of case studies tied to malaria, Parkinson's disease and treatment, drug-resistant bacteria, but also plastic pollution. So it's and honeybees' chance of survival. So it's being applied by researchers and teams all over the world in various sectors already, which I found really promising and beautiful. And another interesting part is that you see the Nobel Prize winners here. The guy in the middle is a young researcher. He's only 26 years old, but he's already done this really interesting study on in what ways generative AI is actually making us more productive, and if so. And he specifically looked at researchers who developed new materials and found some interesting insights. They discovered that when these researchers got to use a generative AI tool that has specifically been trained on data tied to these materials and discovery of new materials, um, they discovered 44% more materials. Their patent filings rose by 39%, and there was a 17% increase in new product prototypes. So very clear sort of benefits of using AI in these cases, of sort of taking you outside the box and finding and making completely new findings, which is again exciting. This brings me over to my sort of conclusions, takeaways of this presentation. So AI, electrification are leading megatrends that are transforming the industry and the whole society, I'd say. And companies that successfully integrate both will definitely lead the future. And don't forget that AI is a strategic enabler that delivers value across the entire electrification value chain, from design to communication to energy infrastructure, any sort of infrastructure, supply chain, etc. AI has benefits and can contribute it sort of throughout the whole organization. And it's very clear that looking at the world, we're facing challenges, both innovation, collaboration, and bold leadership can overcome them. I'm 100% convinced, and that's why I dedicate my time to technology and the possibilities with AI, because I really believe that we can overcome almost any challenge with the help of them. So seize this opportunity to both electrify, optimize, and lead the next industrial revolution that we're in the midst of already. Start small, think big, but act now. We can't wait. And a takeaway, a first sort of a first thing to do, first sort of top on your to-do list tomorrow, something to do and that is more hands-on, is of course use Andrew Ng's model to identify your first high impact use case and start elaborating there, build a pilot and see where that takes you. Thank you.
Paulina, thank you so much for an excellent presentation. So timely. It's a topic that's on the mind of a lot of leaders and people in and around our business and our customers' business. So thank you very much for that. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I have been monitoring questions. I think we have a bit of time. One from the audience is, what happens when robotics and AI find a way to control humans? I guess the Skynet question.
Yeah, well, that tiny question. Well, I'm of course I'm pro regulating AI, and I'm also pro regulating robots, since they're tied together, and since generative AI really sort of pushes humanoid robots and that whole space forward. We have to make sure that both are regulated. So I would like to see an AI act, an extended AI act that takes the physical aspects of sort of embodied AI systems into account more. Um, of course, I mean, what we're seeing now is humanoid robots being portrayed as robots that could help us fold laundry, cook food for us, etc. Those are the type of scenarios and use cases that many of these tech companies are sharing right now. But you know, quite easily these robots could be programmed to do other things that are not as helpful to us and could be directly harmful. So I mean, we definitely have to regulate that.
Makes sense. Thank you for that answer. Another question from the audience. I think it's a good one. In the context of big companies, leveraging AI. That's where a lot of the stories come from. This question is, do you think AI is for small companies too?
Yes, very much so. And the benefits of the type of AI that we use today is that it's so accessible. It can actually, be cheaper than it used to be, and it becomes cheaper every day because the technology becomes more efficient and cheaper. So yes, and I'm running my own one woman consultancy show, and I've done that for 11 years. AI is helping me so much. I don't have colleagues per se, and suddenly I do have a colleague. I have an AI colleague that I can bounce ideas with that makes me scalable actually. So suddenly, from not being able to scale my hours up beyond my actual physical hours and the hours that I'm awake, I can. There are two of me because I've developed this AI assistant. So that's an example of actually smaller businesses benefiting just as much, maybe even more so. You don't have to sort of buy into these like really expensive, extensive AI solutions. There's a huge business around these things, of course, and tech companies that want to sell their solutions to companies. You can do it at small scale. Start small, but start today.
So it could lower barriers to entry in some ways and stimulate
Yes,
innovation among small companies.
absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I've got more coming in. Um, what are the limitations of current AI systems? Uh, Backup is, and who owns the intellectual property rights to AI generated work?
Yeah. So the property rights question is completely up in the air. Actually, just the other day, there's this first example of a U.S. court that um, uh, didn't sort of by the whole notion of fair use. So AI companies claim that since they're only training their models on copyrighted material data but not sort of outputting it, it's considered fair use, and they should be allowed to do it and train their AI models on whatever. And now for the first time, there's actually this first case where a judge actually said, no, I can't consider this fair use. You used other people's copyrighted material to train this AI model and benefiting from it. So, but that's one case, and there are so many sort of ongoing cases that we don't know the outcome of yet. So it's totally up in the air, but it's definitely one of the sort of crucial aspects of that could sort of tip the whole AI sector into one or another direction, and making it more or less difficult for AI companies to develop further.
Thank you.
There were two questions in that question, right? So what are the limitations of AI systems today?
Yeah, the follow-up was, who owns the intellectual property rights
Yeah.
to the work that is leveraged using
Yeah,
AI?
and so the output is not owned by anyone really. Like if you output a text or an image, you have the right to use that, but it's not an exclusive right. So anyone else could use the same image or use your text, etc. So it's not you can't claim an exclusive sort of right to the content that you generate with the help of AI, so far at least. Limitations of AI systems, there are many. The current generative AI models are sort of pretty. What they're doing is predicting the next word, basically, based on probability. And those of you who know language and how complex it is and how complex human communication is, it's a pretty limiting model of how language works. So it takes us only so far. And if we want to go beyond that, we have to find sort of alternative ways of looking at information, context, communication.
Thank you. This looks similar, along the same track, but I think more along the lines of product companies. So this question is, if AI creates or if AI helps create a solution that is adopted by a private company leading to a profitable product, who gets ownership of that idea? The AI software parent company or the developer of the product?
Um, so that's a great question. I know where it's sort of it's a well, that's a really great question. I would say you are, or at least you as a company can't claim ownership of those ideas because the AI model generated it. But again, I don't think this has been sort of tested enough in court.
Mm.
We don't have any clear use cases or sort of prejudices tied to this. So I don't really have a 100% answer to it. But generally, um, anything generated by AI models does not give you an exclusive sort of ownership of whatever comes out of it, be it an image, text, or an idea, a concept, a product. Um, yeah.
If you're leveraging AI tools to make your product designs faster,
Yep.
and to provide some incremental ideas, I think that's the spirit in which the question was asked, not that the
Oh, yeah. Well,
products.
in that
Like,
case, yeah, in that case, these are really great but complex questions. Um, in that case, if you already have sort of a copyrighted idea or a product that you own, you will definitely keep the ownership of that product or that concept. So that is definitely maintained, and you using AI to improve it shouldn't change that. But again, this is not my sort of field of expertise, and again, I don't even know if the experts have an answer to this. And another factor is that it's very sort of the way we look at this is very local. So in the US, the answer could be one thing, and in the EU, it could be another. So that sort of makes everything complicated as well. But it's a great question, but
yeah,
honestly, I have to
understood.
say I'm not sure of what the answer would be.
Okay. No, that so it's obviously a
But
big
it definitely
topic.
shouldn't compromise, like, if you already have the ownership of a
Right.
product or a brand or so, and you improve it with AI, it shouldn't compromise that.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have time maybe for one or two more.
Yeah.
Um, there was a question about, you talked about leadership in your presentation.
Mhm.
Can you provide some other practical advice or come back to some of those points for
Yeah.
leaders and managers who are
Yeah. So
being, yeah,
one aspect that I hear my clients talk about as well is that there's this dichotomy or duality in leading AI, in that you want to encourage your employees to get excited about AI and get on board on the AI train or whatever you call it. At the same time, that employee might feel worried about making themselves redundant, losing their jobs by doing that. So as a leader, you really had to understand that you have to, again, that psychological safety when it comes to AI. You have to provide safety. You have to tell your employees that even if this progress or this AI journey would lead to you losing this specific role, you being progressive and positive and sort of part of this journey makes you highly relevant for other processes in our organization. You might get another role. We will not just kick you out, because that would sort of totally ruin the incentives for people to get on board. So you have to sort of, yeah, you have as a leader, you have to have this holistic approach and understand the worries that people have, and again, it's a deeply human journey, and we're not just professionals in it, we're human beings in it, and you have to understand that. So empathetic leadership is definitely required.
and you also mentioned what I left in my head about it was also an innovation mindset, right?
Yeah. Yes. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And have everyone sort of have a stake in it and be part of the journey. And what usually my experience is that when it comes to AI, there are already these, you know, people in the organization, different parts of the organization that have ideas about how AI could be used. What I've seen among my clients, and I'm also writing a book about AI transformation. So I've interviewed companies, and what I see is that they have different processes for gathering and collecting these ideas. So it's really both a bottom, sort of top down and bottom up process. A lot of great ideas to sort of start with and collect as a starting point in your AI journey, really.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you to the audience for all the questions. And Paulina, thank you very much for kicking off the conference for us.
Thank
Thank you.
you. It's been a blessing. Thank you.